Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Bourbon with your broker. Of course, my name is Earl Music, and today's very special guest is Bill Spencer, who also happens to be my uncle, living in a small town. And so Bill is in charge of the ambulances here in the Grangeville area.
Whoa.
And you were just also telling us how many square miles this ambulance crew covers.
We cover around 1,400 square miles.
So that's a tremendous amount of land that you guys are covering, but there are not very many people in that stretch of land either. But today's whiskey is going to be Widow Jane. This is a 91 proof bourbon, and I'm super excited. If you've been watching, I've had a lot of guests that were not bourbon drinkers and been making a lot of cocktails, but tonight we're going to just drink this straight.
And I've got a disclaimer. I'm not on ambulance call, and I'm not on the clock.
He is not on the ambulance call. Of course, we always tell everyone to enjoy their adult beverages responsibly. And then I'm actually going to add, I made us some clear ice cubes. And
Perfect.
I love drinking a good bourbon with a clear ice cube in it. So Bill, tell us, how long have you been doing any of the ambulance crew stuff?
Well, it's been a day or two. Years ago, I worked for an ag company called McGregor's, and we needed somebody with a first aid qualification or higher. And there wasn't any first aid classes, but there was an EMT class, and so I took it. And we were being taught by a CRNA that was also the administrator of the hospital at the time. We got done, and he asked me to join the unit, and that's been 44 years ago.
Wow. 44 years of going out on calls. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And the ambulance crew here is all volunteer.
Yeah, we're considered a compensated volunteer, which means you get enough to pay for some of your equipment and stuff like that. But time you pay your taxes and everything, you might have enough to go out to dinner once a month.
Yeah, so it's really a dedication to just the community, which, of course, if you've been watching the Bourbon with the Broker, is always something that's really important to Emily and I. And Emily just happens to be an EMT here and run underneath you. I have no idea what possessed her to want to do this, but one night she came to me and said, "Hey, they're doing these EMT classes, and I think I want to go." And I was like, "Well, whatever." And she absolutely loves it.
Well, we appreciate all our volunteers. Emily has actually not only just become an EMT, but she's also in the middle of taking the advanced EMT course, which is also an additional commitment. And we really appreciate every volunteer we have. So.
Yeah. If you don't know, you have to have one advanced EMT on every shift, correct?
For us to maintain our ILS, which is intermediate life support status, yes, we do.
And so in a crew, typically when this rolls out of here, you have one advanced and then two, I don't know, regular EMTs.
Any combination thereof. Sometimes there might be a 2 advanced, sometimes there might be an advanced, an EMT and a first responder, so it kind of varies all over the board. One thing a lot of people don't realize, I think that is different than the big city and all of the TV shows you see, is when they go out on a call, all the fire trucks roll up and, and they got all sorts of help to do stuff. When we roll out of here, normally we're it. So we've got to do a lot of lifting and moving, and I also preach a lot to the EMTs to maintain your back, because that's the number one thing that takes EMS out of your career is a serious back injury. And so we run with a 3-person crew for that reason, because the fire department will come out if we need them to, if they're available. But normally we're on our own out there.
Yeah, and the fire crews around here are volunteer as well. So,
they are.
So it's not like you've got a lot of trained help. Even I was talking to the police chief here in the Grangeville area one time, and he told me that when he would sign on in the evening, he would call the county and find out who the closest backup was. And sometimes they were over 100 miles away. And so we do live in an extremely rural area here. And so it's always a good idea.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this a lot. It's very smooth, isn't it?
It is. It's good.
But also that kind of brings me up to the next thing is I was thinking about, my wife was talking about one of her calls one time, and they had trouble finding the driveway. Around here, we don't have pizza delivery places, so nobody puts their address at the end of their driveway.
Yeah, and I would like to see someday Carsonite type posts put up around they renumbered everything a while back ago, you know, and there were a few roads that changed names and stuff. And that has made our GPSs work a little bit better, but there's a lot of places GPS don't work. So.
Yeah, and I think I heard there was about 200 new addresses that were done in this county this last year.
I heard something like that too.
Google is probably fantastic when you're living in Los Angeles or Chicago, but you're in little Grangeville, Idaho. Google doesn't care a whole lot about us, so they're not keeping on track of all these new addresses and stuff. So something that our brokerage wanted to do, and I have not figured out exactly the post I want, but going forward, anytime we sell a rural property out in the county, we're going to put an address post with a highly reflective number on it on the end of their driveway. And so we just want to be a part of the solution and just start getting some of these address posts sitting out there, so that when you guys are in the middle of the night driving around these mountains looking for an address, you'll go, holy cow, there it is.
Yeah. And one thing you might look into is the Carsonite posts, which they flex with the snow hitting them.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, if a snowplow comes up and blows a bunch of snow on it, it won't break them over. So
I know
that's
we
what
got to
we'd
get them
look
up
into.
high enough to keep them out of the snow and all of that. Also, I want to talk about, you've been doing this an awfully long time. What kind of big changes have you seen here in the county, just around growth and what it's done to the ambulance crews here?
Well, you know, our annual call volume has went up significantly over the last 10, 12 years. You know, we used to do maybe 250 a year back in 2010, and we've been averaging close to 600 now the last 3 years.
Wow.
So, you know, you start figuring that up, you know, that's several a day consistently, and that's tough for a volunteer agency. And we also do a lot of the interfacility transfers. We're trying to kind of back away from a few of those just because of EMS fatigue. So people are tired, they don't want to go on clear to Spokane or Coeur d'Alene or Boise. You know, Boise just last month, and it was 13 hours, you know, and that was after being up all day. So.
Emily's done a couple of those calls where, you know, at 2 a.m. she gets a call and she's out the door, and then, you know, 7 hours later she comes back home. And so the commitment that you guys do for this community is just tremendous. And of course, not everyone knows everything you guys put into it. And that's one of these reasons why I wanted to come down here and talk with you on that, is just to kind of highlight that. But also, if there's people that are living in our community now or are thinking about moving into our community that have any kind of medical training at all, or even if just interest in it, how could they maybe get onto an EMT crew?
So it's not too difficult, especially if they're within the call range. You know, we like to have you within about a 5 to 7 minute response time to the garage. But, you know, contact your local agency. And if it's here in Grangeville, you can reach out to me through the hospital. You know, Whitebird is really suffering. They need some. Kuski is suffering. Elk City is. Riggins, you know, it's rural EMS throughout the country is really struggling because, and not to pick on the younger generations, but a lot of them are not interested in joining community events and community service and stuff. You see that with the Eagles, the Elks, you know, and all of Lions Club, all of those are hurting for members. So.
Yeah, I'm extremely guilty of that. When I was living in the Boise area, down in Eagle, my mom begged me to join the Lions Club down there, and I had no interest in it at all. And then we moved up to Grangeville, and then my wife started bugging me. You need to join Lions. You need to join Lions. And so I finally did, and I really enjoy going. It's a lot of fun with the guys. We do a lot of great things for the community. And so, you know, if you're living anywhere in rural America, but especially Idaho County, find something to do to go volunteer. You'll find lots of friends, and it's just something good to do.
Well, it's a good way to give back to the community. So, you know, that's one thing. And You know, so many people come up here and think that these are all just paid services, and they're not, you know. So if it wasn't for volunteers, a lot of them would have struggled to keep going. So.
Yep. And there's been a huge influx, not just in our area, but all over rural America because of COVID. A lot of people started working from home. So then they discovered, wait a minute, if I can work from home, then I could live somewhere decent and work from home. So we got a lot of people leaving big urban areas and moving into little towns like ours. And but you don't always think about, hey, one day I might get hurt or have a health problem and need to make a phone call. And it might not quite happen as fast as maybe it would have in a bigger urban area where they have firemen stationed every 4 or 5 miles and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was scrolling through the awful Facebook the other day and saw a post that came out of the EMS here, and it had talked about that right now the EMS crew is 18 people, and those 18 people are currently filling 2,190 12-hour shifts.
Yeah.
What can we do to maybe get that to where we can spread that out between more than 18 people?
So this kind of hits on a passion of mine. And I've met with the county commissioner, Ted Lindsley in particular. I've also had some discussions with Senator Crabtree on this, but this is a big problem, and it's not just Idaho County, it's throughout Idaho, and it's throughout every rural state in America. EMS volunteerism is dropping, and those of us that have been in it for a long time, like myself, you know, we've got a limited number of years ahead of us. For instance, in Idaho County recently, POW QRU closed down. There was one person trying to provide it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a week, and they said, I can't do it. And so that vehicle left, and so now if you're driving to Missoula, your nearest, if you have something on the upper end of Highway 12, your nearest responding person will be out of Lowell, there by Three Rivers. And that agency has 3 people, and they're all over 70, so that's not very sustainable either. So then you're looking at another 30 miles into Kuski. So if you have an accident up there, you better be ready to sit and wait. So, because you can't always fly. A lot of times you can't up that corridor. So,
and something for people to know, Idaho County is so big. We touch Montana and Washington and Oregon. There are 5 states in the U.S. that could fit inside of our county, and we have 18,000 people living in it.
Yeah. And so anyway, like I said, that's a big deal. And if we lose our volunteers, you know, you're looking at, in Idaho County, just to staff 1 ambulance per station of the existing one, you're looking at over $2 million, you know, with their operating funds. And so that's going to be a big bump to the taxpayers, you know. And so making ambulance tax districts might help on some things, but it's not going to answer your personnel issues, at least not that I can see. And the other problem with that is if you've got paid EMTs in Elk City, Idaho, are you going to retain them, you know? They only get 3 or 4 calls a month, you know, maybe 6. You know, that's a lot of twiddling your thumbs up there.
Exactly.
And trying to keep your, you know, your skills current and everything. So recently I was contacted by Office of Performance Improvement and Evaluation with the Idaho State Legislature, and they did a survey and stuff, and that's how thick it is, 90-some pages. But some of the highlights that I'd like to read off to you is that 22% of the EMS agencies report their agency receives sufficient funding. So that means 78 doesn't think they get quite enough. We've made no progress since 2010 on our recruitment retention issues. We've had a lot of what we called hometown meetings, you know, and things, and we haven't been able to get anybody to really take the ball and run with it. And we really need legislatures or organizations, and I personally think the Idaho Association of Counties would be a great one, but to try to do some stuff to help with recruitment and retention. 3 of my big ones that I've been preaching since this email back in 2012. One was to provide PERSI funding, retirement for volunteers. You know, and they say, well, how are we going to fund it? Well, you're going to have to fund EMS one way or another.
Yeah.
And my thoughts are, let's put a little gas tax on, so we don't just pay for it out of the landowners, you know, with property tax, but we get all the people traveling and recreating in Idaho. But that's just one choice. That's not my decision.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that would be great, and you brought it up, Earl, we've got a lot of people moving in here who are self-employed or working from home, right? So one of the big issues with those people that are self-employed is health insurance.
Yep.
So if we could allow them with maybe a little subsidy to buy into the county health insurance program, which is a fantastic program, one of the best ones in the town here, that would also encourage self-employed people who could take day call once a week or every other week or something, because they can adjust their schedule a little easier. So I think that would be a great thing. And the third thing that I think would help is maybe an income tax rebate for people that are volunteers. And there's going to be some discussion held about what compensated volunteers are, what volunteers are, and what paid people are. And there's definitions out there that spell that out pretty significantly, so that's not a big deal. But I think that the time has come where we're either going to have to put a lot of money on our property taxes, or we're going to have to learn how to recruit and retain some of these volunteers. And I think those three items, especially PERSI, where you're looking at a 5-year vesting period, people will stick around to get that extra retirement. And I think the health insurance, like I said, I think those three things are a good place to start. I think there's others out there, but
Yeah, I love the idea of the insurance, because my wife and I are self-employed, and insurance is tough. And we actually ran into Ted Lindsley, one of our county commissioners, at the subway, which is fantastic when you live in a small area. Your elected officials, they can't hide from you here. But we grabbed him and we talked about him this, and we thought, man, it'd be really cool if some of our volunteers, especially the ones that are retirement age too, can get on with the county's insurance or something like that, that maybe we can help afford our insurance, and it would just be a fantastic recruitment tool and retention tool, in my opinion.
I think so. And you can spell out how many shifts they've got to take. There's a little bit of logistics that are going to have to go into there, but that's where we're going to have to go with it. Or we're looking at paid EMS throughout the county and throughout the state. That's expensive.
Yep. And this is a fantastic area to live because we have stupid low taxes, but nobody here wants to pay a dime more. So, which I completely get. But yeah, I mean, but the alternative is you fall down and hurt yourself, and you call 911, and they go, sorry, you're going to have to get yourself to the hospital. That's not a great solution either. So,
well, like I said, there's a lot of room for improving EMS. Another one would be provide more local education. We've got our local EMS conference coming up the 1st of March, which is a great education for most rural EMS agencies. But a lot of times you have to travel or zoom in on meetings, and everybody's getting a little tired of those.
But it was fantastic for Emily. I mean, there's no charge for these classes. She came twice a week, if I remember right. For a couple hours, took a test after a few months of classes, and then she had to run. What was it? Fourth seat, I guess it was called. And so she, had to do some of those runs before she was.
Yeah, it's kind of an orientation period, so they get used to it. Because we don't want to just throw them in the middle of the battle.
Yeah, but
scare them off.
But it's not super difficult if you have a passion to do this to get up and going.
Yeah. And one thing I will tell you, if you're an adrenaline junkie or think you are, this will get you there.
Yeah.
I had a nurse, an EMT. I actually taught him his basic course. He went on, and this is also can be a stepping stone, because he went and became RN, and then he became a operating nurse, and he moved his way up the ladder. But he told me even in ICU, he said nothing gets you going like rolling up on a car accident in the back of one of these vans where there's snow, there's crap scattered all over the highway. You don't know if they're in the car, out of the car, pinned in the car.
Yeah.
He said that's the biggest adrenaline thing. And apparently I'm somewhat cursed, I guess, because not only am I addicted to that, but so is my son, who's a critical care paramedic, and my grandson, who's an EMT. So
your son, one day we were at a family function, and I had misidentified him as an EMT, and he very promptly told me there's a difference between EMT and a paramedic, and I was like, oh, I didn't know. But anyways, well, Bill, thank you so very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed your bourbon. You didn't get much of it, but we're going to get it finished. And again, Bill was not on call today. He's not on the clock. Thank you so much for the Grangeville EMTs allowing us to just come in here and sit between a couple of the ambulances and film this. If you're at all interested in anything like this, whether you're in Idaho County or anywhere else, please look into it. It'll be a great thing for you to do. And if EMTs and this kind of thing isn't your bag, go find something else to volunteer for.
And really, it's not as bad as most people think, Everybody says, oh, I can't stand the blood. We don't see that much blood.
Yeah.
And when you do, guess what? You're so busy and focused, you don't even notice it till after everything's said and done. So, well, thanks, Earl.
Thank you. And Widow Jane, fantastic bourbon. I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And
watch the table.
Always remember to enjoy your adult beverages responsibly. And thank you very much for joining us for another Bourbon with Your Broker.